Question: what do you get when you combine a DLC dynamic driver, two balanced armature drivers, one planar magnetic driver, and one piezoelectric bone conductor driver? Well, you get this. What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Kiwiears Quintet. Now, this IEM retails in at $219, and I would like to send a special thank you out to Linsol for sending this out in exchange for my review. All thoughts and opinions are, of course, my own. So the Quintet encompasses 4 different driver types for a total of 5 drivers per earphone. And to cover this again, you're going to get one DLC 10mm dynamic driver that will take care of your bass and sub-bass response, 2 BA drivers which will take care of the mid-range, and then you get an MPT planar magnetic driver. Now, MPT stands for microplanar transducer. It's actually something they developed that's a microplanar driver for this, as well as the piezoelectric bone conductor driver, or the PZT, and that will take care of your airiness, your detail, stage region, things like that of the IM. Now, all of this comes together to give you 32 ohms of impedance and 106 dB per milliwatt of sensitivity. Now, taking a look at the IM itself, this is an all resin material. It's all solid color. It's pretty lightweight as well. And each one is handcrafted from Kiwiears, and you'll notice on the cover here, you're going to see kind of a brushed resin faceplate. Now, this is a matte gray finish on the faceplate. One says Kiwiears, the other one says Quintet. And then inside the box, you're going to get the IMs. You get 2 full sets of silicone tips. Now, interestingly enough here, one set of the silicone tips is actually a little bit shorter and almost fatter in a way than the other set is. You get a pretty nice braided cable that will terminate to 3.5 mil. And lastly, you do get a black case, which is the same one that we saw on the Kiwiears Quartet. And that's all. And I hate to say, and that's all, but I'm also spoiled in the fact that I just got done reviewing the Falcon Ultra from Dunu, and that was one impressive set of accessories. So to go from that to this, which is about the same price, yeah, I was a little bit underwhelmed. But I will tell you that comfort-wise and fit-wise, this IEM does fit very well in my ears. Comfort-wise fits very well. The nozzle is a little bit longer on this one, so that is something to take note. So this will go a little bit further inside your ear, and someone that's not used to that may feel like that's a little weird at first. But yeah, I mean, the comfort was perfectly fine, especially because they are lightweight. Now, aesthetically, in my subjective opinion, this is a little bit of a boring looking IM. Again, coming off something like the Falcon Ultra, but I'm okay with that if they make up for it in sound. So let's talk about that next. So the short version of the sound of the Quintet is a Harman type tuning. Now, it does have a 9 dB shelf in the bass region, and you definitely feel that extension of the bass on the Quintet. It's got a pretty flat mid-range response throughout the region of the frequency response, but there is a nice gain in that 3K region, and that's, at least what they've told you, what they've done for this IM, and I do hear that. There's good presence there in that region. And then the treble response here is very detailed, but it's also not piercing or sibilant, and it's just got a very nice tonality overall to the IM. But let's get more into the details on this one because things get really interesting in my opinion. So let's start with bass response first, and I would like to give you a track example to go along with that. So there is a track called The Hammer by James Blake. Now, besides the fact that it's called The Hammer, and I think it's appropriately named because of the bass that you get in this track, it's also a very good one to test on something that's got good bass response because there is some kind of slower pulsating bass that's all throughout this mix. And actually, one other track recommendation, funny enough, from the same artist of James Blake, and the track is called Limit to Your Love. Now, shout out to Tyler's Eclectic for actually recommending me this track because This one has some really fast pulsating bass, but what I would say is that pulsating bass never lacks and it always stays constant through the mix, and it doesn't overpower the rest of the mix either, which does, show the attributes of using multiple drivers here and that they're all doing their separate thing to equal out a good musical response. And I felt the bass to be very full. It's definitely got a lot of quantity to it. It's got a lot of quality to it. It slams. It doesn't slam the hardest, but it slams. And again, it's just a really good bass response. And then as we go into the mid-range, there is a track I definitely want to mention that I came across for the mid-range, and that is called Soul Eyes by Candace Springs and Terrence Blanchard. Now, look this one up because this is a vocal jazz track, and I brought this one up because this track kind of has everything going on, but especially the mid-range. It starts off with this beautiful piano, and the timbre of the piano, in my opinion, just sounds fantastic on the quintet. But when her vocals kick in, it's almost like parting the seas, right? I mean, it's like you take the instruments of the music and it just kind of brushes them aside, and her vocals come straight forward right into your ears, and it is beautiful. And I wouldn't necessarily call this very mid-forward or vocal forward. It's just, again, showing those multiple drivers and how they're playing together wonderfully to give you good quality sound to your music. And I enjoyed this track thoroughly listening to it just because, again, of her vocals through that, like I said, the piano, the timbre of that, there's even some trumpet that, really comes through and shines through really well in this mix. And you never lose out on her vocals on this IM. And I thought it was beautiful. There's also good sub bass going through this, and you hear that sub bass just fine, but again, it doesn't overpower the mix. All right, and so as we go into the treble region, I actually want to bring up a couple of things. One is blues music. So recently I've really started to dig blues music. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Joe Bonamassa, gonna get that right one of these days. Anyways, I love the electric guitar in blues music, and just, that's just my personal favorite thing to listen to right now. Now, what I will say on IMs and any gear that you listen to is electric guitar, when it gets in that, kind of high range of that, can get peaky and it can get bright and it can get piercing in your ears if it's on the wrong device or just, maybe on something that's tuned a little bright. Now, what I found on the quintet is that's not the case. I really enjoyed the sound of electric guitars on the quintet. It's got that accurate detail. The timbre is right there, and it's just a pleasing listen. And I guess that's kind of my impression of the treble response on this. It's a pleasing treble. It's not warm, but it's warmish. It's detailed and both. Detailed and warm at the same time, which is kind of unique to do that, I think. Now, there are probably times where this can get a little bright if a track is kind of mixed that way. You just got to be kind of careful on that. Heavy metal music and rock music and things like that could be fatiguing on something like this and piercing because it is a little bit on the analytical side. But still, yeah, I think the treble region is done very well. And there is a track example I want to give as well, and that is Yoshi Horikawa, Wondering. Now, I know this is a played out audiophile track. Many people put this on their test tracks. The reason why I'm bringing this up are the birds. So, and I'm not giving you the bird. I could be. But they're the birds. I mean, I was listening to this track. I wasn't even paying attention that it was currently on because I was just doing my mix of things. And I started hearing these birds chirping. And I paused for a second. And I'm like, did a bird fly in the house? What's going on? And I look up and looking around. I'm like, oh, that's in the track. I had never really noticed or paid attention to that before in this track. That's the fun part about this hobby, guys, and listening to different types of gear is you pick up on things that you don't at other times. And I picked up on that when I was listening to the quintet, and that really is a nod to the details. That bone conductor driver, what it does, the imaging, the space, right? So I was given some good spatial imaging. I didn't think birds were like right here. I felt like they were up there. And, just the awareness of where things were around me. And that track is very good for testing imaging in space. He uses a lot of ambient sounds for his instruments, and it was incredible, to be perfectly honest, and something I thoroughly enjoyed, where I had to write that down and share that with you guys because it's all about the birds, at least in that track. And now I'm going to probably listen for it on other gear, but that's what we do when we discover things like that. So I just, wanted to pass that forward to you guys. So really just to kind of round this out, I listened to this on different types of devices, my Cayenne RU7, my ADI 2 DAC. I felt like both of those sounded wonderful. Now the RU7 is a very precise DAC, and I said that in my review, and I think it pairs really well with this IM, but then so does the ADI 2 DAC for the transparency nature of it. And just this, I think, is going to pair well with a lot of different types of gear. It doesn't take a lot of power to run it, but I do think if you can run this balanced, you're going to enjoy that because you'll get a little bit more of those details when you're giving it more current and juice for it, but it's not necessarily necessary to enjoy this IM. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this IM, got to be honest. It does lean a little bit analytical in my ears than it does musical, but it still maintains the musical side as well. And it's an interesting, kind of comparison between this and the Dunu Falcon Ultra. Now, I don't really have that answer yet and which one I necessarily prefer, but they both have sounded great, and this one sounds very good in my opinion as well. So hopefully this video helped you guys. If so, please smash that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel because, well, I got more content right around the corner that I will be working on. In the meantime, guys, I will see you in the next one.